But what if we don't need to do that starting again thing? What if we just need to carry on? Missing one thing makes you feel like you failed everything. Not because we're lazy and not because we don't want it badly enough, but because we made the plan so difficult. Can we please stop starting over again? Because I feel like every week we decide this. This is the week we're going to completely change our lives. We're going to wake up early, go to the gym, drink more water, journaling every day, keep the house organized, work on our goals, and somehow still have time to relax and enjoy ourselves. And then we miss one day. Maybe we wake up late, maybe we don't go to the gym, and maybe we spend far too long scrolling on our phones. And then suddenly we're thinking, right, I've ruined it, I'll start all over again on Monday. But what if we don't need to do that starting again thing over and over again? What if we just need to carry on? Because I don't think becoming that woman you want to be is about changing your whole life overnight. It's not realistic. It's not sustainable. I think it's about making a few small decisions differently and then repeating them for long enough that they actually begin to feel like you. So in this video, I want to take you through a realistic 30-day reset. Not one of those challenges where you have to wake up at 5 in the morning, drink a green juice and completely transform your life before breakfast. This is going to be a much more realistic conversation about healing what's been keeping you stuck, changing some of your everyday habits and becoming the woman you know you are already capable of being without burning yourself out and without starting over every time you have a bad day. So grab yourself a coffee to get started. Hi, I'm Samara and welcome to Sculpting Her. This is a space where we have honest conversations about healing, confidence, discipline and finding your way back to yourself. And today, we're talking about how to reinvent yourself in 30 days. But before we get into the actual plan, I want to say something. I don't think reinvention means becoming a completely different person. And it's not about erasing who you are to become a new person. It just puts a lot of pressure on you. So even before you've begun, you already feel that hesitation. So I think the first thing that we need to do is say, what isn't working anymore? What am I tired of repeating? And what would make me feel more myself again? Because what we're trying to do is to return parts to ourselves where we've rejected for a long time. So this is about coming back to yourself, but with a stronger standard, better habits and a clear idea of what we want. Why we start all over again. I think a lot of the time we love a fresh start. So there's something really exciting about buying a new journal, writing a new routine, and imagining how different life is going to feel. I've done this so many times. I've literally just scheduled out my whole gym sessions for the whole week, journaling, making time for myself, going on walks. It looks great on paper and it sounds lovely, but then real life happens. You're tired, your mood changes, something happens at home. And because your routine was so full and so unrealistic, missing one thing makes you feel like you failed everything. And that's usually where we stop. Not because we're lazy and not because we don't want it badly enough, but because we made the plan so difficult and there's no room in it for being human. And I think this is where we really need to change the approach. You don't need a routine that only works when you're motivated and everything is going perfectly. You need something that still works when you're tired, busy, or even had a really bad day, because those days are part of life as well. The Her method. For this 30-day reset, I'm going to use the Her method, and that stands for heal, elevate, and reclaim. We're going to start by healing, which really means being honest about what's draining you and what needs to change. Then we're going to elevate your habits and your standards. And finally, we're going to reclaim your time, your confidence, your boundaries, and the part of yourself that you may have lost along the way. And you really don't have to do this all perfectly. That isn't the point here. The point is you're spending the next 30 days showing yourself that you can make different choices without disappearing the moment that things get difficult. So from days 1 to 7, you're going to be healing. That literally starts with a life audit. For the first week, before we start adding anything, I want you to take a proper look at what's happening in your life. So take a page in your journal and divide it into 3 sections. In the first section, write what's draining me, and you have to be brutally honest. It could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be friends, family, anything, even cooking. It might even be constantly comparing yourself to other women online. Maybe you'll keep agreeing to plans that you don't want to attend. Just write it all down. Then in the second section, write what actually makes me feel better. Not what distracts you for an hour, what genuinely leaves you feeling calmer or more like yourself. For me, it's definitely going to the gym, getting outside, being in nature, journaling, and spending some quiet time on my own. For you, it could be cooking, reading, praying, creating something. Then in the last section, write down what am I tolerating that I know needs to change. This one can be a little bit uncomfortable because sometimes when we don't know why we're unhappy, but actually there's something that we know for a while, sometimes we just don't want to face what changes it might involve. So maybe you're tolerating a friendship that constantly leaves you feeling drained. Maybe you're accepting behavior that doesn't feel respectful. Or maybe you're even tolerating your own habit of putting yourself down. We don't need to solve everything today. You're just being honest about what's happening. And you're putting those words out in the atmosphere and on paper. Because you can't change something while you're still pretending it doesn't bother you. Okay, so now you've done that, I want you to choose 3 things. One thing you're going to stop, one thing you're going to simplify, and one thing you're finally going to face. One thing you might want to stop is looking at your phone in the morning. One thing that you might want to simplify would be that you don't need a 2-hour routine. You could cut it down to 45 minutes. And the thing you face might be a conversation or an appointment or a financial issue or even an email that you've been avoiding. So this first week really is about clearing some of that mental noise, making things easier for yourself. I also want you to look at your environment because sometimes we're relying on willpower when we could just make life easier for ourselves. For example, if you want to go to the gym in the morning, put your clothes out the night before. If you want to journal, don't leave your journal hidden in a cupboard. Leave it somewhere you can actually see it. You don't need to make everything difficult. Just prove that you're disciplined. Sometimes discipline is simply setting things up so the better choice is easier to make. That's what I mean when I talk about structured softness. You still have structure, you still have your standards, but you're not making yourself miserable in the process. Now, days 8 to 14, elevate. Who are you actually becoming? During the second week, I want you to think about the woman that you want to become. And I know we all love the visual side of this. What does she wear? What does her home look like? Where does she go? What kind of car does she drive? And that could be fun. I want you to go a little bit deeper than that. It's more about thinking, how does she speak to herself? How does she respond when she's upset? What does she do when somebody disappoints her? Does she communicate honestly or does she keep everything inside? What does she no longer accept? And what does she do when nobody is watching? So write these sentences down. The woman I'm becoming is someone who ... and then finish it at least 5 times. Maybe she's someone who keeps her word. Maybe she takes care of herself without feeling guilty. And maybe she doesn't make herself smaller because she's worried about what people will think. Choose the qualities that actually mean something to you. What would genuinely make you respect yourself more? Turn those qualities into actions. Once you've chosen those qualities, ask yourself what they would look like in real life. Because saying, I want to be a bit more confident sounds lovely. You may have other responsibilities, and instead of doing nothing because you can't do everything, you need a smaller option. So if your normal workout is 45 minutes, your minimum might be 10-minute walk. If you normally journal for several pages, your minimum might be writing 1 honest sentence. Key thing is that the minimum isn't pointless. The minimum actually keeps you connected to yourself, and it says, I can't give everything today, but I'm still here. And I think that's what real discipline looks like. It's not forcing yourself to perform at your best every single day because it's not realistic. It's refusing to disappear completely just because today feels a little bit harder. Around the 27 to 29, take some time to look back. And please don't only focus on everything that you didn't do. We're really good at doing that. We could keep about 20 promises to ourselves and then spend all our time thinking about the 3 that we broke. So instead, the question that we should be asking ourselves is what became easier? What still felt difficult? And which habits made me feel the best? Day 30. So on the 30th day, I want you to write a letter to the woman who's starting this challenge. Tell her what you've learned, tell her what you're proud of, and tell her what you're no longer going to accept. This might feel a bit weird, but it's like if you're into journaling, it's like a little love letter to yourself. Because now that we've done the 30 days, it isn't a moment of just finishing with your old life and starting the new one. It's like a check-in point. You're deciding what worked for you well enough to keep, and you don't have to keep every habit, just the ones that made you feel good. Keep the one that helped you feel a bit more closer to yourself and let go of anything that was only there to make the routine look impressive. 30 days probably won't give you a completely perfect life. You may not have every answer. You'll still have things that you're working on, and you're definitely going to still have days that you're not motivated. But you can come out of these 30 days trusting yourself a little bit more. You can become clearer about what you want. You can become more honest about what isn't working. And you can actually start building a life that actually feels yours. And we're not looking to create a perfect life. It's about creating a life that feels calmer, more honest, a bit more meaningful to you. You just have to stop leaving yourself behind. Keep showing up for her. Keep listening to her. Keep your promises where you can. And when you don't, come back without turning into another reason to give up. You don't need another perfect beginning. You just need to keep going. Let me know in the comments what you're reclaiming over the next 30 days. And if you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to Sculpting Her for more honest conversations about healing, confidence and discipline and becoming the woman that you know you're capable of being. Thank you for spending this time with me and for staying until the end. I'll see you in the next one.